Hey, what's up you guys, it's Connor, and today I'm going to be doing a book review for Age of Myth by Michael J. Sullivan. I'm going to keep this spoiler free so you don't need to worry about anything that would be spoiling for any of the series that Michael J. Sullivan has written. Ashley sent this to me because there were extra arcs at her place of work and people didn't want them, and I was like, yes, I want that book, please. So she ended up sending it to me, which was so amazing. I'll leave a link down in the description to her channel. I absolutely love all her videos. I love just how straight up she is. She's just so funny. I love her videos. So definitely check her out if you would like to. If you guys don't know, this is Michael J. Sullivan's newest book series that he has already completed, so each book will be coming out, I think, one book a year. I'm not exactly sure on that, but they're all already written, so they're definitely going to be published on time. Looking at you, George R. R. Martin. This also takes place in the same world that his Riyria Revelations and Riyria Chronicle series took place, but this book is set so much earlier than those other books that you will not be spoiled if you read this book, or if you read those books you won't be spoiled for either one. But there are some little overlaps that you wouldn't know about if you read this book first and then read those. You would see the connection still, but you might like it better if you read those first and then read this one. I don't know. It's really just up to whatever you want to do. Where the Riyria Revelation and the Riyria Chronicles really follows Royce and Hadrian, this book follows a bunch of different characters from different places within this fantasy world. And so I would categorize this more as epic fantasy instead of high fantasy, which I have kind of shelved those other books as. In this book, humans have always thought of elves as being gods and immortal and not being able to be killed, and so the relationship between those two races is very much one of worship and awe almost. They have to give tribute to the elves, the gods, and so the elves leave them alone, and there is a divide where the humans are not allowed to go across this river, or else, you know, they're breaking the law and the pact that the humans and the elves have signed. At the beginning of the book, one of the elf gods is killed by a human, and so it starts off this huge cascade of events where the humans are now realizing that the elves are not gods and can be killed, and that they have been treated very poorly by the elves, and the elves are freaking out and having to make sure that they continue to have dominance over the human race. And just based off that premise, I thought that that was a really, really interesting concept, that we were going to be able to witness the shift in the relationship between elves and humans, because in the Riyria books, the humans are way more dominant than the elves. And so it's just kind of putting it on its head and switching it up a little bit, because the elves in this book are much more powerful than the humans. And so because this book is more epic fantasy and follows more characters, I'm going to take a little time to talk about some of the main characters that you were going to be following throughout this book, so you can know going in which characters are the most important players, and if you're going to enjoy this book based off its characters. So the first character I'm going to talk about is Wraith, who is the person who is the god killer at the beginning of the book. He's from a clan of humans that is not very loving. They're very hard. They live in a very harsh environment, and so the people have adapted to that, and so he's slow to trust, and he definitely has a chip on his shoulder, and he's very dry, and so I really appreciated reading from his perspective and seeing how he looked at different situations. The next character is going to be Persephone, who is the ex-leader of her clan, which is like 2 away from Wraith's clan. At the beginning of the book, Persephone's husband dies, and so she loses her place in society, where she was at the very top, where she was basically leading the society. She is now nothing, and she doesn't have anywhere to go, and so she's having to deal with seeing someone else come into leadership of her clan, and her trying to balance giving up that power but also making sure that her people are safe, and that this new problem with the elves is going to be solved and her people are going to survive. That's her main focus, and she's a super strong female character that is incredibly self-sacrificing and loyal and intelligent, like so intelligent. And so I think that Michael J. Sullivan is really good at writing characters that I just cannot help but root for all the time, no matter what circumstance, no matter what they're doing, even if they are not making the best decisions, or maybe if they are not doing something that is completely morally correct. I cannot help but root for them, and all of these characters are those types of characters. Arian is a female elf in the book, and she is one of the highest class of elves that can do extreme amounts of magic, and so seeing that whole culture was really interesting for me, and the fact that they all shave their head, and that Arian is bisexual. She has had relationships with both female and male elves, and so it just brought a little different taste and feel to the book, because we usually just get human perspective in Michael J. Sullivan's books, so it was really interesting to get an elf's perspective as well. And really the last main player in the book is a little girl named Suri. She is a mystic, which means that she is kind of a soothsayer, a seer, if you will, and she predicts that something terrible is going to happen and something is coming to kill everyone, and so she is on a mission to try to help people prepare for this event and kind of figure out what is going on. And she teams up with Persephone to, again, figure out what is happening. And Suri is trying to balance how she's lived her entire life living in the forest by herself, well, with one other person, but now she lives by herself and becoming more involved with society. And so it's really cool to see her. She is so funny. I love Suri. Best character there is in the book. She has a wolf that runs around with her named Mina. I love Suri so much. I would read a whole book just in Suri's perspective because she is that fantastic. So now that I've talked about some of the characters, I'm going to do my pros, cons, and then my rating, and then let it be done. Pros. I loved the connections between the Riyria books and this book. There is some overlap, and I really enjoyed seeing those and being able to be like, oh, I see that right there, Michael J. Sullivan. I know what you're doing. And I really love when authors make their books interconnect. That's why I love Brandon Sanderson's Cosmere novels, and I actually really like the Five Kingdoms series and how it overlaps with the Beyonders trilogy by Brandon Mull. And so I really like that Michael J. Sullivan is having these books overlap a little bit, and they have little characters that you have heard of in the Riyria books that show up in this book, and so I really enjoyed that. I loved having all the strong female characters. A lot of the characters in this book, even the side characters, they're all female characters. There's really not that many male characters that play big roles in the book, and so I really loved seeing all the strong female characters and how they were working out the problems that were showing up, and how it really showed that this society that Persephone is a part of is very female driven. The males kind of just hunt and stuff, but the females are the ones that are making a lot of the decisions and are making their society flourish. Again, Suri is a huge pro. I love that character and just the characters in general. They were so much fun to read about, and even the ones that I really didn't like because you're not supposed to like them, I still enjoyed reading about them because I could just see some things that were going to happen. I was like, oh shoot, what's gonna happen to them because they're awful? And then when stuff would happen, I was like, yeah. I thought the world building was really well done. I definitely got a really good grasp for everything that was happening, and even if you don't have the background information of the Riyria books, which you don't really need for this at all because it's definitely set up way different in this book than it is in those books, but you definitely have a feel for the environments that everyone is living in and the cultures that everyone has. I think that was one of the big things that I really loved, was that he thought out the cultures of every single society that we get to see in this book, and they're all different, but they all make sense for where they're living, because a lot of cultures end up reflecting where they're living at. Like, the environment that they're living plays a huge role in the type of culture that they have, and so I think that that was really well done by Mr. Sullivan. The magic system was really cool. I really liked that Suri was a mystic and she could read bones and she could talk to trees, and then I really liked Arian and her version of magic and how she could convert things from one thing to another. She has like telekinesis and stuff. She can do so many things with her magic. It was so cool to read about, and I really liked that we got some lessons about the magic system and how the elves were teaching other elves how to do magic, and the lessons and the morals that had to be put into place before someone is able to do magic well. And for me, these are personal pros. I really like fast-paced stories, and so this one is very fast-paced. It's definitely plot-driven instead of character-driven. Although you do get a lot of character development within this novel, I think that it is more plot-driven than it is character-driven. And now onto some cons. I think the book could be borderline info dumpy at certain parts. It would be like, we'd be going on for some plot, and then it would have a huge section where it was just like, this is how everything is. So I think that the information that we needed could have been better woven into the plot, and I think that some of the characters could have delivered some of that information and not just been dumped on with a bunch of information. But I didn't really care because I was very intrigued about the world, and so I really liked learning those things, but I think that it could have been done a little bit better in terms of how he gave us that information. And another thing that I didn't love was that the plot jumped. At some point, at some points, I would be really confused. From one page to another, it would jump far ahead and then kind of fill in what happened after that. I didn't love that. I like a continuous narrative for most of the time, unless that's a stylistic thing that he is doing from the very beginning, but that's not kind of what he did. And so it jumps forward, and then we get the information of what happened, and we get the information that we kind of needed to understand what was happening between that paragraph and this one. So I didn't love that either, but again, you get the information at some point. It's just not immediate. So at first I was like, well, wait a second, did I miss a page? And I'd flip back and reread it, and I was like, no, I didn't miss a page. And then the next page or whatever would have the information that I needed to understand why we jumped from there to there. So that, again, was just a personal thing that I wasn't a huge fan of, but you might like it. It wasn't for me. So overall, I really ended up enjoying this novel. It's not my favorite Michael J. Sullivan book, but I definitely see the potential with this series. I ended up giving this book 4 stars. I definitely recommend you checking it out because I just love Michael J. Sullivan's writing. It is so easy to get into. It's so easy to get through as well. It's an epic fantasy book, and I read it in, I don't know, 2 days or something like that. So definitely recommend this one. I think this video will be posted before the book comes out, which is on June 28th. So you still have a little bit of time to pre-order it before it gets more expensive when it actually comes out. But that's it. That's my review. If you liked it, please give it a big thumbs up and comment down below if you've read the Riyria Revelations. If you want to read Age of Myth, let me know all the thoughts and feelings about this book down below, and I will talk to you guys next time.